So I came out to Nantucket originally when I was about 5, 6, 7 with family. Once I graduated from university, I ended up meeting a couple people in my travels from Nantucket, and they reminded me that it was an amazing place to work for the summer. So I came back out for the summer and fell in love all over again. I did leave for a bit and traveled. I met my future husband here, who was from Ireland, and so we moved to Ireland. And then we both decided to come back and ended up back on Nantucket full time 2013. I've always been interested in politics, local business. But my background is really the environment. And those are all things that I studied way back at university and I've carried through. But professionally, I've been focusing on the environmental side. One of the things that I'd always loved about Nantucket was this balance of history, architecture, and a wildness that existed in the environment, and the beauty of rounding Brant Point, coming into historic downtown, but then immediately feeling like you're out 30 miles out to sea, and you've got the moors and the dunes and this sort of pristine environment. 2017 is when I felt that as someone who loves those aspects of Nantucket, I think it's a very fine balance between those various elements. And have felt that there is a need for an advocacy for the environment. One of the reasons that I ran was because I felt that the board, the select board particularly, was making decisions that are impacting us so far down the line that it needs to be more diverse in regards to age. And that, I think, is not an easy task when you are working full time to be on a board like the select board that requires such a time commitment. So for me, campaigning was a completely different experience than actually being on the select board, and an element of being politically involved that I hadn't really considered and just hadn't experienced anything like it before. The way that I approached select board, I was really coming in without any experience and with what I would consider a very limited network of friends that were mostly based on work and just sort of casual acquaintances that turn into long-term friendships. To campaign, the very first thing that you do is pull your papers. And the first 3 people that signed my papers told me I probably wouldn't win, that I didn't have a chance, but they would sign my papers. And from that moment on, you really get launched into exactly what campaigns everywhere are like, where there's a lot of shaking hands and meeting new people. And it's wonderful and it's exhausting all at once. And it is radically different from actually serving on the board. So for me, it was a baptism of fire, jumping in the deep end. And it was fulfilling and exhausting. But I felt like immediately, even if I hadn't gone on to win the election, I had already seen a side of Nantucket that in the years leading up to running for the board, I had never experienced. In order to campaign, I don't think you need to have a full operation to do it. I did not. Again, I was really starting very fresh and with very little experience, but you will find that there are people on the island that you don't know at all. They find out that you're running and they just want to support you. And so there are people that become your support network. And then I did have a core group of friends who came together, and it was a group of friends that under no other circumstances would they all come together at one point in time, but they all came together to help me campaign and come up with different ideas. And I sort of had one right-hand woman who was there, and I recommend that you need a right-hand person. My campaign may have been a little more exhausting, a little more difficult. I think that there's many ways to do it if you would like to run for a board. And to be honest, I think one of the best ways is to just find a board that maybe has quite a few people on it, but maybe a more limited time commitment so that you can sort of test the waters, but start to get to know people. Is there room for a mentor? Absolutely, because I think that it can be very daunting. If certain people hadn't been very accessible to me to ask questions, I would have never run. When you join the select board, what is a little bit shocking, I think, is that you find out you've been elected at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday night, and on Wednesday evening at 6 p.m. you're at your first meeting. Our first meeting, there was an issue that myself and Jason Bridges, who had also won, had zero background on. But there was a crucial vote that was being taken, and we were advised to abstain. And I think understanding how important, how powerful it is to make sure you have the information that you need. Don't feel the pressure to know everything. And I think it really took me almost a year to feel like I had seen the issues enough times to have the background, to have made the right phone calls, to have asked the right questions, to really feel like I knew what was going on with all the various pieces. And all of the various decisions that were interrelated that we were being asked to decide on. Feeling like you don't know something can be daunting. And so there's a lot of people who don't ask questions. And I think that's one of the most important things you do is to not worry about what other people think if you don't know something. Before I ran, I didn't look to see how many women there had been on the board or if there'd ever been 2 women on the board. Just seeing Dawn there, I never even questioned for a second that a woman wouldn't run or be elected. Because when other people see that it can happen, you stop asking whether it could happen. When you are considering an elected position, I do think, again, starting out with one of the other committees, commissions, or boards that is an appointed board is an excellent starting place because you begin to understand the pace at which government works. And so I think you can understand what a 2-year appointment means, what a 3-year appointment, what a 5-year appointment means. And I think what's amazing about all the committees and commissions we have is that there's such a diversity and depth of issues. So you can find the 1 or the 2 or the 3 that are important to you, and you can get involved in those. The school committee is one of the committees to me that seems to have a little shorter time frame in sort of decision impact. And so in terms of being able to be involved in really important decisions, because I think anything related to to children and to education is one of the most important committees on the island. But the school committee is one that a lot of people are really paying attention because it is their children's education. So a year out of being on the board, almost 1 year now, one of the things that I love is when people get excited about a decision that has, or not a decision that has been made, but they're seeing movement or seeing the town doing something, and they're excited about it because it's a good thing. And knowing that I was one of the people sitting on the board when the decision to do that thing was made, that comes up often with some of the housing things that are happening, as well as some of for me, one of the things that is close to my heart is coastal resiliency and also waste management. So knowing that you were part of that decision and the person that might be telling you how excited they are to see it happening, they may have no idea that you were any part of it, but they're perceiving it as a good thing, is always really wonderful. It feels like your part in it was important.